Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're getting sporty with a short sleeve tee. This make features a comfy v-neck design, sporty stripes, and a stitch combo that offers just enough intrigue. Speaking of, if you're intrigued by stylish crochet makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 420 grams of yarn. That's 940 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch marker, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us what first got you interested in crochet. I originally tried to learn how to knit. That didn't work out too well for me, but I pivoted to crochet and have been hooked ever since. Details for the giveaway down below. We are using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and extended half double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an even number chain that starts at the top of our shoulder down to where we'd like the bottom of this top to be, so it can either be cropped or full length. I'd like for mine to be full length, so I'm going to start by making a chain 70. That's going to be 19 inches or 48 centimeters for me. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first row. That's going to be an extended half double crochet row. So what we're going to do is block off that last chain and start with a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then what we're going to do is yarn over, and into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, what we're going to do is yarn over and pull through only the first loop to still have 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is our extended half double crochet or modified double crochet. So let's do the next one together. Again, we're going to yarn over. Into that following chain, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through only the first loop to get 3 loops on our hook again. Then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we reach the end of the row. We are back. We have just finished up our row 1. Now this is going to be a 2-row repeat, so our following row is going to be a mesh stitch row. So what we're going to do is chain 2. That first chain is going to count as a turning chain, and that second chain is going to count as a chain. Then we're going to flip our work. And all we're going to do from here is skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next. So we're going to skip the first, into the next, insert with a single crochet, and all together we should have our first chain space. Might be a little hard to see, but there it is, and our first single crochet. So total of 2 stitches so far for this row. Doing this again. Chain 1, skip a stitch into the next, insert with a single, and that's it. We're just going to continue doing this until we reach the end of the row. We are back and our row 2 is complete. Now, like I said, it's just going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows. So let's just get started on the following one as a refresher. So our following one is going to be an extended half double crochet row, so chain 2 and flip. Now just to do the first one, we're all going to yarn over. Inserting our hook into that first stitch from our previous row, which should be that last single crochet, we're going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 3, and we're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way down. We are back and our row 3 is complete. Now let's get started on the following mesh stitch row together. That's going to start with a chain 2. First chain is still going to count as a turning chain. Second chain is going to count as a chain and flip our work. Skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next, forming our first 2 stitches for this row, which is our chain space and single crochet. Continue to chain 1, skip a stitch and single crochet into the next until we reach the end of the row. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows until we have a shoulder portion that can reach from 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder all the way over to the side of the base of our neck. And we should all end right after an extended half double crochet row, and then I'll meet you back so we can get started on the V-neck portion. But just as a really quick tip, each of our rows so far should still have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made when we got started. We are back. My shoulder portion is complete. Now I have a total of 17 rows. This width is roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our neckline. But just before we move on, I just wanted to let you guys know that the row sequence that we have will make our work slant just a little bit. So I did tug on both sides to make it look even, but it actually slants a little bit in this direction, keeping in mind that my hook is along the bottom. That's completely fine. It is natural, and it will even out when it's seamed. Now what we're going to do from here is our first decrease row. So since we should all be along the bottom, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. Then we're going to do the following row in our row sequence, which is our mesh stitch row. So just do the same mesh stitches that we've been doing this entire time, but leave the last 4 stitches, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can do our decrease together. We are back. We have made our way all the way down with our first decrease row, which was our mesh stitch row, leaving the last 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches for everyone. Now what we're going to do from here is a decrease. So all we're going to do is chain 1, skip that following stitch, and then we're going to do a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over first, inserting your hook into that third to last stitch, pull through, second to last stitch, pull through, then into that last stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, then just yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops, and that is our first decrease. Now our following row is still going to be an extended half double crochet row, but that's going to start off with a decrease as well. So chain 2 and flip your work. So to do this decrease, we're all going to yarn over. Insert your hook into that first stitch, pull through. Into that following stitch, which should be our chain space, pull through, and then into that following stitch, pull through. Then from here, we're going to yarn over and pull through the first 3 loops on our hook to get a total of 3 loops on our hook again. Then yarn over, pull through all 3, and that is our decrease for this row. Now from here, the rest of the stitches in this row is going to be extended half double crochets. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows until we have a portion that can reach from the side of the base of our neck over to mid-chest. And I will meet you back right after a moss stitch row, so that should be along the top, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can do our middle row, and then basically repeat everything we did here on the other side. We are back. The decrease side of my neckline is complete. Now I have a total of 30 rows. My width is roughly 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Now we're all going to get started on our middle row, which should be an extended half double crochet row for everyone, since we all should have ended right after our mesh stitch row. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, and for the middle row we aren't going to do any increases or decreases, so just put 1 extended half double crochet into all of our stitches. Then once our middle row is complete, we can get started on the other side. So at the end of our middle row, chain 2, flip our work. Then do our regular mesh stitch row the same way that we've been doing it, bringing our work all the way back up, but now leave the last 2 stitches, because then I'll meet you back so we can do our increase together. We are back. Our middle row is complete, and I did get started on my following increase row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now before we do the increase for the first increase side of our neckline, what we're going to do is make sure we're inserting a stitch marker into the top of our middle row just so we know where the middle is. Now we should all have 1, 2 stitches left, and then we're going to close off the row with our increase. So all we're going to do is chain 1, skip that next stitch, which is our second to last, and into that last we're going to insert with a single, a half double, and a double crochet all into that last stitch. So there's our single, into that same last stitch with a half double, and same last stitch with a double crochet. And now that is how we're always going to be increasing for our mesh stitch row. Now just to get started on the following extended half double crochet row, chain 2 and flip your work. So it's just going to be 3 extended half double crochets into that same first stitch. So yarn over, into that first stitch, insert with 1 extended half double crochet, into that same first stitch with a second extended half double crochet, and into that same first stitch with our third extended half double crochet. There we go. And then from here, continue with 1 extended half double crochet into the rest of our stitches. So from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows for the same amount of rows that we have for the decrease portion of our neckline, but we do want to make sure that we are not including that middle row. Once we have the same amount of rows, then we're just going to work straight into the shoulder portion from there. So I'll meet you guys back when our increase portion is completed. So we are back. I have just finished up the increase portion of my neckline. We should have the same amount of rows as the decrease side. And then from here, we're actually just going to get started on the shoulder portion, which I already have done. So that is going to be fairly simple. Everyone's last row should have been a mesh stitch row. Then from there, all we're going to do is just chain 2, flip our work, do our following extended half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases, and then do our following mesh stitch row, again with no increases and no decreases. We should have all ended up with the same amount of stitches that we did for the first shoulder portion, and we're just going to repeat those 2 rows for the same amount of rows as our first shoulder portion again. And then I'll meet you guys back so I can talk you guys through how to do the back panel, because it's going to be super duper simple. So once we have the entirety of our front panel completed, we're going to do pretty much the same thing for the back panel, minus all the decreases and increases. So super duper simple. Start off by making the same amount of chains that we made when we got started on the front panel. Then we're just going to continue to repeat our extended half double and mesh stitch row with absolutely no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way across for the same amount of rows that we have as the front panel. Once we have that completed, I'll meet you guys back so we can seam up the shoulders. We are back. We have just finished up the front and the back panel. Now we're going to seam up the shoulders. But right before we get started with the actual seaming, we're all going to want to make sure that the front of the front panel and the front of the back panel are faced in on themselves, because this does have a distinct front and back panel. So just to show you guys the difference, on my right is the front of our piece. Now you guys can tell that this is the front because we can see the back of the extended half double crochets, so it looks like there's a little bit of ribbing within the piece. And the back of the piece is going to be this other side that we have right here, in which it looks really cool. It looks like we have a bunch of clusters, but we don't want to use this portion for this piece. So what we're going to do is make sure that the front panel, we have the front faced up towards us, and then for the back panel, we have the front face down, so that when everything is flipped right side out, we will see the same side within the front panel and the back panel. But once we have that all configured out, we're then going to be inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, yarn over and pull through everything and do a chain up of 1 just to secure. And what we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side extended half double crochet row, and then 1 single crochet into every side mesh stitch row. So let's get that started. Everyone's first side row should be a side extended half double crochet row. So find that top loop within the front panel, insert your hook, find the same top loop within the back panel, insert your hook with a single crochet, and then into that same top loop within the front and the back, insert your hook again. It should be a little bit easier since everything should already be gathered, and single crochet. And that's it. Finding our following side row, which is a mesh stitch row, find that top loop, insert, find the same side mesh stitch row within the back panel, find that top loop, and insert with another single. And that's basically it. We're just going to continue on with this single crochet sequence until we don't have any more side rows left to work into within the front panel. Once we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. We are back. We have just finished up seaming our shoulders. Now we're going to seam our sides. So first things first, we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into any stitch from the top, the width that we'd like for our armhole to be. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into the 25th stitch from the top. That's roughly 7 inches or 18 centimeters. And then from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch to do our side seam. But just as a really quick tip, we are going to want to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we did for the shoulders is still along the outside. We are then going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then from here, we're going to do a single crochet row working in through both the front and the back panel at the same time. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert your hook. Then finding that next available stitch into the back panel, insert your hook in through there and single crochet. Once more, into the next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook. Into the next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and single crochet, and we're just going to continue doing this all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Alright, so everything is all seamed up, and now we're ready to get started on our sleeve. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within our armhole, and then we're just going to do our mesh stitch and extended half double crochet rows. So what we're going to do is chain 2. That first chain is going to count as our turning chain. That second chain is going to count as a chain. Then making sure that we're working clockwise or to the left, we're going to skip that first stitch and then into the next, insert with a single crochet. So far for this row, we should have our first stitch, which is that chain space, and then a single crochet. And again, chain 1, skip a stitch into the next with a single crochet. So this is going to be done pretty much per usual as the body portion. Make your way all the way around with our mesh stitch row, and then I'll meet you back. So we've made our way all the way around with our mesh stitch row. Now we're going to connect it to close off the row. So all we're going to do is just slip stitch into that chain space that we made when we first got started on our row. And then from here, everyone's following row is going to be an extended half double crochet row. So we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. We want to make sure that we're flipping our work after every row to make sure that the ribbing and the sleeves make sense. And we're just going to put 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch. Now, since we already know how to do that, I will meet you back when we don't have any more stitches left to close off the row together. We have just made our way all the way around with our row 2 for our sleeve. Now we're going to connect it. So that's going to be super duper simple. We're all going to start by slip stitching into that second chain that we made when we got started on this row. So count up 1, count up 2, into that second chain, insert with a slip stitch. Now just as a really quick tip, that slip stitch may look like an extra stitch when we're counting out our rows, but it actually doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. But all we're going to do from here is actually just continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we get the total sleeve length that we want. Now I will be switching out my colors at some point, so I will meet you back when I have this portion of my sleeve completed to let you know how many rows I do right before I switch out my colors. We are back. As you guys can see, I have finished up the entirety of my sleeve, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. So like I said in the previous clip, we aren't going to be doing any increases or decreases, and when it comes to doing our secondary color stripes, you guys can insert that wherever you guys like along the sleeve. So just to let you guys know, I did a total of 6 of my primary color rows, 4 secondary, 1 primary, 2 secondary, and then 4 primary. But you guys can make this as long or as short as you like. And that's basically it. It's pretty simple. Continue on with this until you get the total sleeve length that you'd like. I stopped mine right at my elbow, and that's roughly 6.5 inches or 16 centimeters. I went ahead and did the same thing on both sides, and then we can single crochet across the collar. So now that both of our sleeves are completed, we're just going to single crochet along our collar just to clean it up. So what we're going to do is start by making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert your hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the back of our neckline. And working across the back only, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side extended half double crochet row, and then 1 single crochet into every side mesh stitch row. We're going to continue this working our way across our back. Then I will meet you back when we're ready to work into the front panel. So now that we have worked our way all the way across our back panel, we're now going to work down and back up the front panel. All that's going to be is 2 single crochets into every side row, making our way all the way up. So let's just get the first few started. So this is my first side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets, so there's 1, into that same top loop with a second. This is my next side row. Find that top loop and insert again with 1, and then with 2 single crochets. That's basically it. Continue with 2 single crochets, make our way all the way around, and then slip stitch into that chain space. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I will meet you back so we can get started on the following row. We are back. We have finished up our first single crochet row along our neckline. Now we're just going to be doing 1 more single crochet row, but within the back loops, just to finish up our collar. So once we have slip stitched into that chain space, all we're going to do is chain 1, and working in the same direction that we did for the previous row, 1 back loop single crochet into every stitch, making our way all the way around. So let's do the first one together. So I did my chain 1, and just to do my first back loop single crochet, find that first stitch, insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us with a single crochet. And that's pretty much it. Continue on with this, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left, slip stitch into that chain space and do a chain up of 1 and cut. So our collar is all seamed up. The last thing we're going to have to do is our bottom band. So first things first, make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Insert your hook into any one of the side rows along the bottom of our piece. Then we're going to do a single crochet row. So just put 2 single crochets into every side extended half double crochet row, 1 single crochet into every side mesh stitch row, making our way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back. Alright, so our single crochet row is complete, and I also made a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. So I actually made a chain of 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I did a chain 13, and now we're going to do a slip stitch row back down. So start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook in through there. Once we have those 2 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and gently pull through both of those loops on our hook. That is our first slip stitch. Let's do that again. Into that next chain, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything, and that's it. Continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, and we do want to make sure that we are not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. So we are back and our row 1 is complete. Now we're just going to connect it into the base. So just slip stitching it into that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert, pull through everything. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And now from here, we're going to be putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding that first stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything. Again, next stitch is back loop, insert, pull through everything. And that's it. Remembering not to tug too tightly, we're going to continue on with this to reach the end of the row. Then when we reach the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and then I'll meet you back at the base so we can connect it. We are back, and our first 1, 2, 3 rows are nearly complete. We're just going to connect it into the base. It will be done exactly the same way as our previous row. So just find that next stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch, remembering that that stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, again, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. Continue to repeat our 2 previous rows with no increases and no decreases, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. We are back. We've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up. So first things first, this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So making sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to yarn over and pull through everything on our hook. And now to do our seam, we're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Again, into that next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now that our bottom band is all seamed up, we are all finished. The last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!